Have you ever taken a road trip? How many people have taken road trips? Many of us, maybe just a couple haven't, but many of us have. Road trips are wonderful. Stanzi and I love being out on the open road. There's something about the driving and the traveling and the long journey where we just have these great conversations and we take time and it feels like we're able to breathe a little bit, especially when you're like out on the highway in the middle of nowhere for a while and you're just like going, you're not like worried about traffic or road signs, you're just going. There's something about that space that's really, really wonderful and really valuable. And most of us, you know, I think generally have a positive experience with road trips, have things that we like. Maybe you have games that you play or people that you like to travel with, or places that you like to travel to, or there are all sorts of really fun things about it. There are, of course, things about road trips and trips in general that can be challenging. Maybe there's boredom. Maybe there's aches and pains from sitting in the same place. Maybe you're traveling, you're road tripping with a 10-month-old, an 11-month-old. I don't know anyone who's done that recently. We've gotten actually pretty adept at singing him to sleep, which is pretty awesome. And we can get about 3 hours out of him in one stretch on the road if we sing him to sleep. So it's been pretty good. But there are some difficulties and challenges in road trips and in our traveling. And what that means is that at some point, the question that's asked during every road trip is going to be asked. It's just a matter of time. Even if everyone's having fun, even if they're having a great time, there's one question that is the question that gets asked at some point in every road trip, and it's the question, are we there yet? At some point, are we there yet is going to be asked of every single road trip. And it's interesting because this classic question reveals a handful of things about someone's situatedness in the journey that they're on. It reveals, first of all, a longing for a destination. Even if the journey is fun, there's a longing for a destination that's built into the question. And then it also has built in the idea of challenges on the journey. Because no one asks, are we there yet, when they're just like in the peak amazingness of a road trip. They ask, are we there yet, when they're like getting tired of it, when they like ate the gas station food again, when they're getting achy, when they're tired of the person sitting next to them. So are we there reveals a longing for a destination, but also the idea that there are challenges along the journey. And the thing is that there are some sorts of journeys that we're on that never end. There are some kinds of journeys that people undertake that don't actually have a destination built in, like running away. Running away is a particular kind of journey where there's no destination built in. It's about leaving behind a starting point, but there's no destination built in when you're running away. Have you ever run away? Maybe you ran away. You've ran away. You've ran away. Maybe you've ran away when you were a kid, you got upset and you ran away and you put in your pockets your most important possessions, like that toy, and that hat or something, and you got to the end of the block and said, I'm hungry, and turned around. And that was your grand adventure running away. Maybe some of you have done that. Maybe some of you have really had to run away. Maybe some of you have had to run away and flee a dangerous situation. Maybe some of you have had to pack up your car and just start driving without knowing where you were going or where you ended up. Maybe you feel like you never, at the end of the day, ended up anywhere. Maybe some of you are running away from an emotion or an experience or a thought, because we don't just run away from places, we can run away from immaterial things, from spiritual things or situations. Some of you might remember in 2009 the shocking death of the actress Natasha Richardson, who fell and hit her head in a tragic ski accident and died 2 days later of a brain bleed. Her husband is the famous actor Liam Neeson. And 2 years later, Liam Neeson was interviewed about how he was dealing with the grief of having lost his wife in such a tragic situation. And he said this, I think I survived by running away some. Running away to work. He goes on about how this running away always fails. That's the weird thing about grief. You can't prepare for it. You think you're going to cry and get it over with. You make these plans, but they never work. Everyone's running away from something. Maybe a relationship, a sense of inadequacy, a moral norm. What are you running away from? The Broadway musical Water for Elephants is a musical about people who are running away. Water for Elephants was originally a 2006 romance novel that was very popular. It got adapted and turned into a 2011 film with Robert Pattinson and Reese Witherspoon, and it has recently, in this past year, been adapted into a Broadway musical by the Pigpen Theater Company. It opened its Broadway run in March. It's currently scheduled to run through early 2025. It's running just down the street at the Imperial Theater. Just to give you a rough sense of the plot, there's a young man, a college student named Jacob Jankowski, and right at the beginning of the musical, we find out that he is running away. He's caught a runaway train, and he's running away from home. And of course, what do you do when you run away from home? When you run away from home, you have a couple of options, but there's one major option in Western society that you can do when you're running away from home. You run away, and you join the circus. And so Waterfall Elephants is a circus show, and Jacob Jankowski is running away from home and is joining the circus. And as a circus show, aside from the incredible standard Broadway vocals and musical excellence, it's a show that boasts incredible acrobatics and puppetry. It's really worth your time to go see. It's a remarkable, remarkable production. On top of the spectacle, however, the show asks a number of deep and profound questions, like why do we run away? When we run away, where are we going? And when do we stop? And of course, it asks the question, when we run away, should we join the circus? We're kicking off the fall with this fun sermon series called God on Broadway, where we're looking at biblical themes that are in Broadway shows that have been or are on Broadway right now. Last week, we looked at biblical themes that are in Sweeney Todd, which is on Broadway earlier this year. If you didn't listen to that, I encourage you to go on YouTube and watch it. Again, you can find those videos in the app. The movie of Sweeney Todd's a wonderful fall watch. You can catch up on all that there. Watch the movie. Today, our musical is Water for Elephants, and our text is Exodus chapter 40, verses 34 to 38. If you don't have a Bible, you need to get one and bring it to church. You need to get one and bring it to church. I went to a Yankees game yesterday. It would be like watching someone go up to the plate without the bat in their hands. Why do we have a world today where people don't bring the Bible to church? It's mind-boggling. And we're talking about wanting to grow and become more mature and leave stuff of the world behind and become the people that we want to actually be. And we have no relationship with God's physical word that he's given us. You need a Bible. You need to bring it to church. If you don't have one today, God bless you. And as a grace to you, we have Bibles that we would love to be able to give you and offer to you. They're over there on the table. You, of course, can use a device. It's not going to get the word into you in the same way because you're already addicted to your phone. So it'd be great if you could be addicted to God's book instead. So you should yeah, there we go. Walking over, running away. No, I'm just kidding. What? Well, somebody solve that so that Chris can have a Bible. We just need one, apparently. Again, our text is Exodus chapter 40, verses 34 to 38. Exodus is the second book of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, and Exodus 40 is the last chapter in Exodus. So it's an easy text to find it. If you're at Leviticus, just turn back a page and boom, Exodus 40, chapter 40, verses 34 to 38. I've titled today's sermon, Jesus Joined the Circus. I'll read the text out loud. Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And Moses was not able to enter the tent of meeting because the cloud settled on it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Throughout all their journeys, whenever the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, the people of Israel would set out. But if the cloud was not taken up, they did not set out till the day that it was taken up. For the cloud of the Lord was on the tabernacle by day, and fire was in it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel throughout all their journeys. You're running from something, and Jacob Jankowski in Water for Elephants is running away as well. He sings in the opening song these words, "This train is bound for anywhere. I'm going there too. Don't care much where we end up as long as it's new and free of everything behind me." There are a number of classic elements to running away that are present in the lyrics of this song. We can look at maybe 3 elements that are present. The first is that when you're running away, you're going on a journey. Jacob here is singing about going on a journey, but it's a journey that is destinationless by definition. It's a journey that has no destination, because when you're running away, you don't care where you're ending up. You just care about what you're leaving behind. The only thing that you care about is that the place that you're going is somehow new and free and different and unique to the place that you came from before. These 3 things, a destinationless journey that's going to end up somewhere new, are the pieces of what it means to run away. Because running away is a particular kind of journey that's not so much about where you're going as it is about what you're leaving behind. And Jacob in Water for Elephants is running away from home because he's leaving behind a profound loss and the memory of that loss. We find out about midway through the show that Jacob's parents passed away in a tragic car accident, which is what led him to run away from home in the first place. He sings these words about that tragedy. He says, "How are you gone? Didn't the world turn on the arbor of our home? Weren't you holding up the sky with limbs of stone? How are you gone? And what do you do when the people that you love are torn from you and there's nothing you can do?" You can feel this loss in the words of this song, the disorientation that he feels as his home, the center of the orbit of his world, was suddenly destroyed. The loss of stability as these people who were pillars of strength in his life suddenly came crashing down, and the disbelief and the overwhelming feeling of helplessness. Jacob is running because he's leaving behind this profound loss, and so he boards a train not caring where he's going, not caring where the train is going, because it's not really about where he's going. It's about what he's leaving behind. Like all running away, like you're running away. You're running away from something. Whatever you're running away from, it has the same elements. You're on a journey. And your journey's not so much about your destination, it's about what you're trying to leave behind. And all that matters is that the place that you're going is new and free and different from the old that you're running away from. It could be any number of things that you're running away from. Maybe you're running away from that place that you're from, that boring town, wherever it is, that place, that sleepy whatever, and you just want somewhere new, somewhere exciting, somewhere where things are happening. Maybe you're running away from rules, from being defined, or from other people getting to define you. And you don't really care where you're going so long as it's a place where you get to define yourself. Maybe you're running away from people. You're leaving behind all the people and all their expectations and all the lenses that they saw you through so that you can go somewhere else with new people so that you can be something new. Because really you're running away from the you that you were when you were around those people. And you want a new you with new people. I don't know what you're running away from today, but you are running away from something. We're all running away from something. And God's people in our text today, we're running away from something too. Our text today in Exodus chapter 40, verse 36 and 38, twice references the journeys of the people of God. It says throughout all their journeys, and again at the end of the passage, throughout all their journeys. What journey is being referred to here? The journey that's being referred to is the large journey that God's people are on in the book of Exodus to flee the house of slavery in the land of Egypt and run away from that to a new place. If you're unfamiliar with the story of the children of Israel in Egypt, just a little overview. The children of Israel were in Egypt. There was a famine in Canaan. They went down to Egypt and they lived in Egypt and flourished there as a community for many, many years. But then a Pharaoh came up to them who was afraid that they were growing and afraid of what it could do to the Egyptians. And so this Pharaoh enslaved God's people Israel for 400 years. But the God of the Bible is a deliverer and a God who delivers people who are in bondage. And so that God moved to free them and deliver them from their slavery in Egypt. And so those people ran. They ran out of Egypt and they hurried. They ran because they were chased on their way out by the Egyptians. Exodus 14, 6-8 says this: Pharaoh made ready his chariot and took his army with them and took 600 chosen chariots and all the other chariots, so many chariots of Egypt, and all the officers over them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and he pursued the people out of Israel while the people of Israel were going out defiantly. And so they fled. They ran away. And at first it didn't matter where they were going, because when you're running away, it doesn't matter where you're going. It just matters that you get away from the thing you're running away from. And they left behind abuse and oppression, and they were willing to go anywhere to get away from it. And so they fled. And when they fled and when they ran away, they did the same thing that everybody else does when they run away. They joined the circus. God's children, Israel, ran away from Egypt and joined the circus. At least it looks like they did. When you look carefully at this text, doesn't it? They ran away and they joined the circus, a large wandering tent community. Exodus 40:34 says, the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. The language here of tent of meeting and tabernacle are actually probably interchangeable, referring to the same thing. What are they referring to? What is the tabernacle? I've got a helpful diagram for you up here so that you can see it. The tabernacle was a traveling tent. It was a traveling tent that formed the basis of the community of God's people, Israel, while they were running away from Egypt and wandering in the wilderness. It's a traveling tent of meeting that is set up and torn down by a sacred crew of religious carnies. I'm kind of kidding. A sacred crew called the Levites, whose job it was to tear down the temple and wander to a new place and set it back up. And yet they did not mediate a show in the tabernacle. They mediated the presence of the living God. God's people ran away from Egypt and they joined the circus, a wandering tent community around the tabernacle that wandered through the desert. At least it looks at first glance like they joined something that was similar to the circus, that had the same form of the circus. But if we were to look more closely, there are a couple significant differences between the tabernacle and a circus high top. There are at least three that we could get clear about. The first is that the circus houses entertainment. The tabernacle houses glory. August, the ringmaster in Water for Elephants, sings these words about why people come to the circus. He says this, he says, you want to see something to set your spine tingling. You want to feel something you know is real, something beyond the paler things you always feel. You've always felt that there was something out there just waiting to be revealed. This need to see something new, to see something fresh, to see something that will capture my attention and entertain me for a moment is why people come to the circus. And there's something in this that draws us. It feels otherworldly. We want to know there's something different in our life or in the world. And so we go to places where we can be entertained. But entertainment is actually not the real thing. Entertainment itself is a derivative entity of glory. Glory is the real thing. When we see something glorious, our attention is captured. Maybe you've seen something glorious recently. An incredible feat of sacrifice. An incredible skill on display, honed over time. Artistic excellence at its absolute height. A remarkable vista. Beauty revealed to you in glory. And in those moments, you're not entertained, but your attention is fully captured. Entertainment is what we turn to in the absence of glory. When there's not real glory in front of us to hold our attention, we turn to entertainment to hold our attention. And the circus mediates entertainment and houses entertainment, but the tabernacle houses glory. Exodus 40:35 says this, Moses was not able to enter the tent of meeting because the cloud settled on it and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. The cloud that's referred to a number of times in this passage is the physical manifestation of the raw spiritual holiness and reality of the living God. That somehow God's presence was so thick with his people in and through the tabernacle that there was a physical cloud that responded to that presence, that filled up that space, that itself was so thick that Moses could not enter the tent of meeting itself. God's raw, glorious presence is what the tabernacle mediated. And because the circus mediates entertainment and the tabernacle mediates glory, this leads us to our second major difference between the circus and the tabernacle. The circus trades in lies and deception, while the tabernacle trades in truth. August again, the ringmaster, sings in another song about how it is that the circus is able to deliver what people are looking for. He sings these lines. He says, "You see, the people come to the circus to see miracles performed, to see heaven and hell on earth. But we are made of the same stuff as they. How can we give them what they came for? Lies, lies, lies. And for the people who can pay more, lies, lies, lies." The circus promises new otherworldly entertainment. And to be fair, some of the circus is amazing and true. High wire acts, miraculous feats of strength. Some of those things, of course, are incredible. But even those acts, they get old. We feel like we've seen them before. And so what then does the circus have to do in order to get us to keep coming back? It has to say, I've seen something you've never seen. I can show you something you've never encountered. And there's always some sort of sleight of hand or deception involved in making those things come true. How does it deliver? By lying to us, by tricking us. And here's actually the really, really interesting thing about this, is that in these situations, we want to be lied to. We show up wanting to be deceived. We show up saying, I want to know that there's something new and otherworldly that I haven't seen yet in this life. And I'm coming to the circus or whatever place of entertainment I'm going to, and I know there's not really something categorically new here, but I really wish there was. And so if you give me a really sophisticated lie that I can't figure out, it's not just any old lie, right? It's not like if we can figure it out too easily, we're like, okay, that was a bad lie. I get it. You know, there's a threshold of like lying skill that needs to be involved. But if that threshold is met, we then go, I want to be satisfactorily deceived into thinking that you have something new and different that I've never seen before. The circus trades in lies and deception, but the tabernacle trades in truth, because the tabernacle houses the glory of the living God that is on display for all to see. Exodus 40:38 says this, "For the cloud of the Lord was on the tabernacle by day, and fire in it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel throughout all their journeys." The language here, in the sight of all Israel, is speaking to the public nature of what the tabernacle is mediating. Everyone can see it. Yes, if you know details about the tabernacle, you know there are sort of concentric circles of holiness where certain people can only get so close, all those sorts of things. But the basic glory that's mediated by the tabernacle is publicly accessible truth for everyone to access. There's no sleight of hand in the tabernacle. There's no pay no attention to the man behind the curtain in the tabernacle. Not even the religious version of that. There's no religious version of, let me put up a show and make you think it's God. It's just the glory of God, mediated publicly for everybody to see. For anyone who is looking, they would be able to come to the tabernacle and see the glory of the living God on offer for them, not to entertain them for a moment, but to fill them up for an eternity. Publicly available to them. The circus is about entertainment while the tabernacle is about glory. The circus is about lies while the tabernacle is about truth. And this leads us to our third and maybe most important difference between the circus and the tabernacle. The circus doesn't know where it's going, but the tabernacle does. Exodus 40, 36 to 37 says this: throughout all their journeys, whenever the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, the people of Israel would set out. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they did not set out until the day it was taken up. The thing about the circus is that ultimately the circus doesn't know where to go. The circus is just wandering around to its next booking, to its next paying audience. Wherever they can find that, wherever it can be drummed up, that's the next destination. But the tabernacle knows where it is going because God himself is leading the tabernacle. And we know from the scriptures where God is leading the tabernacle. He's leading the tabernacle home. The tabernacle's going home. Exodus 6, 6 to 8 says this. This is God's first message to the children of Israel before he starts them on this running away journey out of Egypt. He says, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burden of the Egyptians, and I will deliver you from slavery to them, and I will bring you into the land that I swore to give Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob. I will give it to you as a possession. This is the major difference between the circus and the tabernacle. The circus is just running away. It doesn't know where it's going, but the tabernacle does. The tabernacle's not just running from something, it's running to something. It's running back home. You have run away and joined the circus. You may be unclear about the way in which you've done that in your life, but you've done it. We all have run away or are running away from something. And when we run away, it's not even so much about the running away that becomes the problem. Some of us have run away from things that need to be fled from. Some of us were running away from things that no longer fits or no longer felt like home. Some of us were running away from things that needed to be fled from. But the problem is that in the fleeing, we've joined up with something that's never going to bring us back home again. We've joined up with the circus. This world is a circus. A circus that doesn't know where it's going. A world of spinning and disorientation and motion sickness and never knowing how to get home again. A world that offers a momentary entertainment. A world that trades in lies and deception, and the world that does not know where it's going to end up. And there's an element of the world offering this that at first feels so satisfying. It feels so different from the thing that you left behind. There's an excitement to it and a magnetism and a draw and just the freshness of going, I'm not doing that old thing anymore. And yet you know, if you would be honest with yourself, from lived experience, that you've seen all the acts the world circus has to offer. Some of you are deceived in thinking that if I saw that one act again, just in a bigger and a better form, that would be what I'm looking for. But there's no bigger and better form of the same old acts that the world puts on that is going to satisfy what you are actually looking for. It's the same stuff. And then you'll find yourself in a position with the world saying, I kind of know that you don't have any new acts coming, so just lie to me. Just deceive me. Just make me think that I'm seeing and engaging with something new. You're longing to see something new. The reality is that when you look around at the world, if you are honest, you know that you have seen everything that this show has to offer. That's why it is incredible news that there is another show in town. A show that is not a show of lies and entertainment, but a show of glory and a revelation of truth and a production that is not wandering around endlessly, but a show that both has run away from the things you need to run from and that at the same time is going to take you back home. A running that finally ends at home. You need to go home. You need to go home with God. No one can run away forever. Even in the times and places and moments in our lives when we have needed to run, we cannot run forever. We were not made to run forever, and you cannot run away forever. You know this in yourself. If you would get into the quiet of your heart and the stillness of your soul and just be honest with yourself for a second, you are tired from running. You're exhausted from running. You're disillusioned from running because you found things that were newer than the old thing, but nothing that's really new, nothing that's really fresh, nothing that's able to give you what you need over and over and over again. You are tired from running and you need to be able to go home. We all need to be able to come home. And maybe you feel like you want to go home, but you feel like you're not able to. Because there's something that can happen in our running and in our flight where we actually, if we're honest, get quite a bit of distance behind us. We get quite a bit of mileage in the run. Or we do things in our running away where we feel like, I'm no longer able to come home again. And so maybe you feel like, I know I need to come home. I need to come home to God. I'm running away and I'm running after the things of the world. And coming home to God and settling in the home that God has made for me and prepared for me is like actually exactly what I need to do. But if I'm really honest, I can't go home. I'm not welcome home. I'm too far from home. I don't know the way back home. And if you feel that way, you need to go home anyways, and you can go home. You could go home if someone would come and find you in the place that you've ran away to and then bring you back home. And that is what Jesus Christ has done, because God's Son left the comfort of his home. A home full of the love and glory and provision of God the Father that he would never, ever, ever, ever imagine needing to run away from. And he ran away from it anyways to come and find you. To leave his home to track you down. To join your circus. Whatever it is. Whatever rings you're spinning and high wire acts you're doing, to join the instability of that life and that world to find you and track you down and bring you home again. Jesus Christ joined the circus to find you out and to bring you home. John 1:14 says this about Jesus. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. And we have seen his glory. Glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. This is a classic passage from the prologue of John's Gospel describing the broad trajectory of Jesus leaving behind his home in heaven to come and find us out. And this word dwell in the English is the Greek word skene or skenao. It is the same Greek word that's used in the Hebrew translation into the Greek, in the Greek translation of the Old Testament in Exodus chapter 40 to talk about the tabernacle. If we were reading Exodus chapter 40 in the Greek, it would say that God let his cloud dwell on a skene, on a tabernacle. So literally this passage is saying the Word became flesh and tabernacled among us. He became a tent. He became a moving, mobile tent in this world. He became the show so that he could be with you and wander through this world with you, but not a wandering, aimless, destinationless circus, but a tent that's moving to a house, to God's house, the house that he has made for you and for me, a tent that's moving on the way home. Jesus tabernacled with us to come get us and to bring us home. Every single thing that is true about the tabernacle is true. Even more true about Jesus. If the tabernacle traded in glory and put God's glory on display, God's glory is on full public display in Jesus. You can look at him and see the glory of the living God in his character, in his power, in his resurrection life. If the tabernacle traded in truth, how much more true is God's Son, Jesus, in whom there is not a shred of lying or deceit or sleight of hand or falsehood. And if the tabernacle knew where it was going, how much more does God's Son know where he's going? He knows where he's going. There's no twist or turn or rivet or delve or anything that could get you an obstacle, the roadblock that could, there's no recalibrating of Google Maps. He knows where he's going all the time. And he's going home, and he's taking us there with him. Jesus entered this world to find and bring home a humanity that has been running away for a long, long time. Because the Bible tells us in Genesis chapter 3 that we ran away from the home that God built for us, a good home, a home of closeness to God and physical provision and relational wholeness, and we ran away. We ran away from that home, and we've been running ever since. And so Jesus Christ left the only home that no one would ever run away from to come and track us down. And he entered the world and joined the madness of this circus that we live in. And you know, the world welcomed him. The world received him and said, we're going to make you our main event. Step right up to see the Son of God on display at the front of the world circus. The weak God, the defeated God, the irrelevant, useless, powerless God, strung up at the front of the circus of this world for everybody to see. And you know, every time in our own lives that we think God is irrelevant, that we don't come to him in prayer, that we don't read the scripture, that we don't build our lives on his truth, that we eat again the momentary entertainment of the world, we are just buying one more ticket. We're just listening to that call, step right up and see how stupid God is. We got him. And Jesus endured that shame to come and find you in the middle of that mess. Because Jesus knows where he's come from and he knows where he's going. And so he knew that God would deliver him from that shame. He knew that God would raise him from the dead. He knew that God would rid him of that circus so that he could lead a people home and bring every single last person to home in God. You should believe in Jesus and come home. When you believe in God, when you believe in God's Son, your faith becomes power to unite your spirit to God now. Power to unite you to God's grace. The grace that would just wash away all of those feelings that you have of not being able to go home. That pit in your stomach, that weight on your back, that chain, that ball and chain around your ankles, God's grace, your faith would put you in touch with God's grace that would come and melt those things away with the power of his love. Your faith would put you in touch with the living power of God's Spirit so that you can go in glory in the wanderings of this world, a glory that will lead you home. You should believe in God today and go home with the God who came to find you. And if you want to believe in Jesus today and be welcomed back on the journey home, I have two things for you. 2 things to do to begin to join Jesus on the journey home. The first thing I want to encourage you to do is to begin to grow in discernment. Ask God for discernment, because we need to be able to name the lies and deceptions that are present in this world, not just that we're taken in by, but that we find ourselves wanting to be taken in by. In order to go home with God, we need to leave the circus. It's been a wonderful place for a while, hasn't it? God bless the circus. It just can never take you home. And so at some point, you need to go home. You need to join a show that's able to take you home. And in order to leave the circus, you need to be able to name the lies and deceptions of the circus, because the circus trades on lies. That's why we stay. Not just because it lies to us, but because we find ourselves wanting to believe its lies. What are the lies and deceptions that, if you were honest, you don't just believe, you want to believe them? What are the lies that you wish were true? Lies like, what I do with my body doesn't matter. How many of us wish that that were true? We need to ask God for discernment to be able to say in our spirits and in our lives, I feel my desire for that lie to be true welling up in me, but God, help me to see clearly again. It's not true. Who I spend my time with doesn't matter. Maybe that's a lie that we want to be fooled by. As Christians, we should be out in the world with people, ministering God's grace, ministering God's mercy. But there's a bit of self-deception that can sneak in here if we find ourselves spending all our time in the circus of the world, acting like all the ways that the world is, and then we think, I'm the person that's influencing them. Well, that's not true. They're influencing us. Isn't that true? We need to be able to have wisdom and discernment in our own lives to be able to say, this is the portion of time in my life where I can be with people who are in the world and of the world, and I can be with them and love them and gracious to them and receive friendship from them, but I'm not just being shaped by the ways of the world through them. I'm the one who's offering something different. And there's no way to get to a place where you're doing that if you aren't spending time with God and other people who are spending time with God. Maybe a lie that we don't want to believe is, a lie that we do want to believe. Maybe a lie that we do want to believe is, how I spend my money doesn't matter. Money's not real. It doesn't matter what I do with it. There's just always going to be some coming in and some going out. And you know what? I don't really care about how I'm spending my money today. And 10 years in the future me, I'm not listening to them yet. I'm not picking up when they call. I'm not in conversation with them about what my life is going to be like now if I don't learn wisdom about what to do with my finance. Maybe wisdom about what I'm doing. Maybe growing in generosity with my money. To have a rhythm of money in my life that's shaped not just by me, but is shaped by giving to and blessing somebody else. Do we find ourselves wishing that it were true? That, it doesn't matter what I do with my finances. In those moments, we need discernment from God to be able to come to God and say, God, you know my tastes. And you're great. You don't beat me up. You're not punitive. You're gracious. You're merciful. But you also are firm and wise and want me to be well. Help me to have a taste for things that are true. We need to be able to name the deceptions that we are bombarded by in the world. That's the first thing that we have to do. The second thing that we have to do in order to begin to go home with God and journey home with Him is to go in the glory of God. The tabernacle was full of the presence of God because a physical cloud as a sign of God's glory rested on this tent, this living place where God's glory dwelled. And the thing is that the New Testament says that because of what Jesus has done, that same weighty, heavy presence of the glory of the living God is available to you and me as we wander through this world now through the presence of the Holy Spirit. And you have to go in the presence of the Holy Spirit in order to go home with God. Wandering through this world to our home is at times a difficult and challenging journey. But it becomes significantly less so when you feel cloaked with the weight of glory that is the presence of the Holy Spirit. Jesus is Spirit, present with us now while he is away in body. And just like the tabernacle went in glory, you need the Spirit of God to rest on you in your life so that you go in the weightiness of God, the seriousness of God, the clarity of God, and the power and the encouragement of God. You need to long for and want to receive the Spirit of Jesus given to you now. And when we have these things, faith in Jesus to bring us home and then receive his Spirit and to be living a life saying, Holy Spirit, come. Spirit of the living God, rest on me now in my life. I need more of your glory and more of your presence in my life. God is willing and able to cloak you in his presence like a traveling cape, a wonderful traveling cape that we put on like we're in some sort of a show, and we wear it and go with it. Garb, spiritual garb that's able to help us and carry us in the journey that Jesus is trying to take us on. A journey home, a journey that we all need to undertake. Amen.